かわいいですね。何歳なんですか？あって言えばいいのに、かわいいね。ペットかっつうの。
Welcome to the lazyfluency podcast, where we have casual conversations switching between English and Japanese so that you can learn from and with us along the way. I'm Joey.
And I'm Yami.
And the topic of the day is kids in Japan. Before we get into that, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and or drop a review to the platform you're listening on. And if you feel so inclined, support us on Ko-Fi. We appreciate the support. And with that out of the way, kids in Japan. If you had a kid making noise outside of your house, would you A, ignore it and proceed with your day, B, put on some headphones, or C, blast high-pitched speaker noises to trigger the kid, causing them to scream and cry? The answer is C, apparently, if you are a Japanese person that I recently heard about on the news. More specifically, this made me think about, Japan is in a really bad problem with not having enough children and the population shrinking. But the more I think about it in my experience, and I've seen, kids exist in Japan, the more I feel like the citizenry themselves kind of hates kids. And so that's what this is talking about. Not the perspective of what it's like to be a kid in Japan, but the perspective of how people treat kids in Japan. Aimi, what do you feel the general sentiment is before we go into specific examples?
General.
Do you think people, the average person, likes kids? Do you think if there's a kid on a train, people are like, ooh, or baby or whatever, they're like, oh, I want to help out, etc., etc. You hear a kid crying in a train, how do people react?
個人的に私の周りでは結構女の子はね、将来家庭持って子供を産みたくて、でだからそうするためには25歳までに結婚して、で子供は30歳の前までに産まないといけないみたいな、それで焦って彼氏探してるのみたいな人が割といるけど、でも多分世の中的にはそんなことなくて、でさっきZ 世代が子供欲しいかどうかみたいな調べたら、結構ね欲しくない人がちょっと多いみたいなのね。で将来子供が欲しくない Z 世代は約5割っていうことで、50% があんま考えてない人が多くてびっくりしたんだよね。で子供が欲しくない人の40% はお金の問題以外、もちろんさお金はかかるじゃん、この子供を育てるとかね、するのにはお金かかるけど、お金以外にもその理由があって、理由としては育てる自信がないとか、子供がそもそも好きじゃないっていうのも、さっきの一番最初のさ、多分子供が好きじゃないとああいう行動を取るんだろうけど、っていうものもあって、面白いなと思って見てました。はい。
That's really high. You didn't say the percentage, but for 子供好きじゃない、好きではない is 45.9% as to why they won't have a kid. And what was this? You said over half of the out of how many people? You said 50% or something don't want to have 5割 about 50% don't want kids.
これでも
Gen Z.
N がちょっと少ないっちゃ少ないんだけど、172人だからちょっと、母集団が母数が少ないけど、でも違うわ。この本調査は全国18歳から25歳までの男女500人を対象にって書いてあるわ。だからまあかな。うん。
And in terms of when someone doesn't like a kid, do you feel from your personal experiences growing up, did you feel like being a kid you always had to be aware of not annoying people?
そうね。結構電車とか乗ってるとさ、いるわけよ。ベビーカー持って入ってくる人とか、ちっちゃい子を連れて電車の座席乗ってる人とかで、やっぱり子供が叫んだり泣いたりすると、結構周りの目もなんていうの、その家族に行くわけで、たまにさ、その子供もさ、なんていうの、土足 靴履いたまままあ電車の座席の上に登ったりとかして、それは本当に、汚いっていうのもあるけど、行儀が悪いのね。それに対してなんかちょっとあの人どうなのみたいな感じの目で見たりとか、正直私もちょっと隣に子供がいたらちょっとね、もう多分頭痛くなるから、ヘッドフォンする、ノイズキャンセルのヘッドフォンするか、ちょっと席変わるかもしれない。ものすごくうるさかったら。So,
well, yeah, that's different from how I told you the Ji-san responded. I can't remember if he was older. I think he sounded like he was middle-aged, slightly older. I should have linked it in the doc here. But yeah, basically in response to a kid, he was playing in a park too. It was a park nearby his house, and they started blasting like a high-pitched noise, basically because only children can hear them, but he can't hear it through his like television speakers to make the kid.
なんだっけ、モスキートーンだ。モスキートーンだ。そう。
モスキートーンだ。
モスキートーンで、そう。で、そう、なんだろうね。でも結構、日本の、どうなんだろうね。おじいちゃんおばあちゃん世代だよね、その人多分。なんか。
Yeah, well, the thing that surprised me the most was his terrible, it was a shameless, completely shameless response when he was brought on this popular news station, and he was like, what's wrong with me, obviously in Japanese, but what's wrong with me not liking kids? And then they're basically like, it's not that you don't like kids, it's the way you handle it. And he's like, I don't like kids, I shouldn't have to deal with it, the kids should be better. And like, they're kids. And he's like, that's an excuse. And it was just like the most, and I don't, to be clear, I'm not in the liking kids category. I'm in the very much most kids disliking. And this is what I found so funny. Japan is the, like, compared to American kids, I feel like Japan kids are saints in terms of I can't remember that times actively being annoyed by a kid in Japan. It happens, maybe it's happened once or something before, but it's very rare. And I feel like, but I feel like for the kids' perspective, this is what I was thinking about. And we'll talk about, maybe I'll bring up some American examples of what I mean specifically. But it feels like to me in Japan, there is no kid. You're a babe, you're born and then you're an adult. Like the second you get sentience and you know you're alive, you're treated as an adult. Does that feel accurate? Or do you feel there are some things that society will let slip if you're a kid? Like who gets blame? If a kid's crying, let's say if a kid's I guess we can do it age by age, but if a kid is talking loudly in a train and let's say his parent is with him or something, who is getting the blame? Is it both the kid and the parent? Or is everybody just looking, from the people around them?
年齢にもよると思うけど、大体親があれだよね。でも注意受ける、あんまりその人に注意するっていうのはないかもしれないけど、ただちょっと冷たい目で見るとかはあるかも。あまりなんていうの、口に出して注意はしないかもしれない。
One of the reasons I also want to talk about this, I told there was other podcast I listened to where the Japanese mom lives in London now, and she said it's easier to raise her kid in London than was Japan, which I found to be crazy for a bunch of reasons. But the reason she cited specifically was because when she's on a train, which is obviously very common in Japan, in London common enough, people around would feel like they're much more eager to be supportive and not as critical about the kid in terms of making noise and things like that.
なんかさ、ちょっと思ったのが、わかんない、そのロンドンの電車の仕組みがわかんないけど、どれだけ発達してるかちょっとわかんないんだけど、日本ってさ、やっぱりメインの交通手段が電車なわけじゃん。その通勤通学にしても、もう朝って本当になんだ、もうぎゅうぎゅう詰めで、もう本当にベビーカーも入れない感じのスペースなわけよ。で、通勤時間に限ったことでもないけど、もう一日中たくさんの人が乗ってるわけね。で、そのなんていうの、環境にそういったなんていうの、うるさいって言ったらあれだけど、子供とかが入ってくると、それはなんていうの、冷たい目で見られるよっていうねっていうので、あるかもしれないんだけど、多分ロンドンってさ、多分メインの交通手段が電車じゃないんじゃない？そこが多分違うと思う。だってね。
London has trains. Obviously, there's no place that has as much density of traffic if you're going to compare it to Tokyo. Tokyo has the highest density of people transfer.
そこも違うんじゃない？だってなんか要するにさ、日本の電車って知ってる人もいると思うけど、すごく静かなのね。もうだから図書館みたいな感じ。もうライブラリーでめちゃめちゃ静かに勉強とか読書してるところにそのうるさい人がいたらマジでなんかムカつくやん。シャットファックアップみたいな感じになるじゃん。だから多分そういう状況が日本で起こってんじゃない？で、
I kind of disagree a little bit because the amount that an individual gets annoyed by a kid is not dependent on by how many people are in the train. If that makes any sense. Like, just because there are a lot of people in a train, ultimately, we're talking about the individual's actions, right? It's the question is,
だからもう
how
電
will
車は
people react to the kid?
電車はその、静かにする場所っていうのでもう定まってるから、その人数が多かれ少なかれ関係なくうるさい人がいるとちょっと睨むって感じなんじゃないの？
Well, obviously, every country has like expectations, but the focus I'm trying to think was how does the society react to children? To be clear, children, if we can agree that children, for one reason or another, should be held to different standards than adults. The question is,
でも
like, how? Yeah, go ahead.
わかんないけど、子供見てなんだろうね、かわいいねなんとかかんとかって言ってるところは結構見たことあるっちゃあるけど、なんか私ねそれのねそうなんていうの子供見た時になんかかわいいねって言ってる大人が嫌なんだよね私。わかる
？Wait, what are they saying?
だから子供に対して赤ちゃんでも何でもいいけど、かわいいねねっていうなんか変な声出して喋ってる大人が嫌いなんだよね。
So you hate the person who's even potentially being supported toward the kid. That's what I'm not. I'm not.
耳障りっていうかなんていうのなんでそういう話し方するのって思うんだよね。いや普通に可愛いですね何歳なんですかって言えばいいのに可愛いねペットかっつ。
Oh no, that means that you're in the Gen Z category too. That means if you go older, you're gonna get.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised to hear somebody saying
2000 Gen Z だよ。
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm not surprised to hear that the old person's going, I don't want to hear the kid. I don't care if he's a kid. I shouldn't have to deal with the kid. To be clear,
私多分自分がねもしね子供がいたら可愛がるもちろん可愛がるとは思うんだけどけどなんか他の人の子供を見るっていうかその子にもよると思うんだけどなんかうるさいって思っちゃう。うるさいっていうかなんかWell,
I also think うるさい. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm definitely getting more and more reinforced that I do. Okay, Shizuka, that you're basically saying if a kid is an adult.
I'm not gonna blast a mosquito on there.
Yeah, if a kid is an adult, then it won't bother you. But you're kind of skirting the question. So I'm actually kind of surprised at the degree that it seems like you're in line.
頭になんかその声なんていうのブワーって響くかなんか頭痛なんかマイグレーンなんか持ってる感じなのね。だからそれがなんかすごくなんか嫌っていうなんていうのそうなんか頭痛くなる。
I'm not saying that in America it's like, for loving kids, aside from if you're like in religious sects where their goal is to have as many kids as possible and then get them to proselytize your religion, or is that the word? I think that's the word. But so I don't think America like loves kids, but I definitely think maybe America would probably be in the, let's say, I'd say Panama, for example, is in the love kids category. Oh. If you have kids and they're babies and everybody, every woman, even I feel like, men will be there, be like, I can help you out in that sense. If you pretty much wherever you're at, unless you're somewhere sketchy or something, maybe it might be dangerous. But generally speaking, I feel like maybe that might also be because Panama's pretty noisy to begin with. There might be a lot of reasons for that, but I would consider Panama to be on more of the side of children and youth are generally liked by the entire population. And then America, I would say, is in between. It's not that people like kids, but I think that people are always blaming the parents in a situation where their kids are acting inappropriately, like at a restaurant.
それ日本もそうだよ多分。
My feeling in Japan, the way you're is there's a lot of anger held specifically towards the kid and the parents. So both get the heat.
でも多分さ、なんだろうね、日本ってさ、子供が自由になんか行動できる範囲がさ、広いじゃん。なんかアメリカだとさ、確か、あれだよね、子供をなんか家に一人でいさせるとなんか犯罪になるみたいな、そうだよね、確か。お留守番ってできないんだ
Yeah,
よね。
we've talked about this before.
そうだよね。
Yes, nowadays that is the case. I think that is crazy.
多分だからなんか自由度がさ、あれじゃん。少ないじゃん。で、子供、なんか、まあ、ここだとさ、まあ、昨日、一昨日か。まあ、東京行ったんだけど、もう朝からさ、小学生っぽい人がさ、もう電車とか乗っちゃってるわけよ。だからもうなんか自分でさ、行動できちゃってるから、まあ、そこを、なんていうの、親なしで行動してるから、まあ、ブレイムするのは子供だけになるよね。そういうのもあるんじゃない？
Well, what I'll say is when I think of Japanese media of kids going around and doing their own thing, I think about them, making a little fort. I think about them catching bugs. Maybe if they're delinquents, like there's a book called Oyasumi Punpun, or I mean, there's a bunch of different depictions of kids doing this. They'll go like in an American way. Maybe back in the day, you'll see them finding porn mags or something. And, if they're delinquent boys or whatever. But what I don't see them doing as much is the tropes in a lot of American media where it's, you're pranking other people's houses, you're TPing other people's houses, you're, what are other things that we did? There's a TP egging, throwing eggs at people's houses, like tricking the neighbors, taking out their mail. Like it's in so many different movies and stuff. And also when I was a kid, that was very prevalent with the kids a year above my grade, like almost on like at least weekly. They like the year above me, the students the year above me would basically harass every house. Like harass like every house in the neighborhood. Basically, not in the neighborhood, like just in the town. They would go, they'd buy a bunch of toilet paper. So to me, I'm like, I see that, and then I look at Japan and then see a grandpa going, I want to blast my high pitched noise because I can't deal with the kid he was making noise in a park. The kid was playing in a park.
その人に対してはたださ、その人がさ、あれじゃん、なんていうの、そこに行かなきゃいい話じゃん。わかんない。それがさ、なんていうの、もうその人の家の前でドアの前とかだったらさ、まあ理解できなくもないけど、でもその人がそこの場所に行ってるからさ。
He lives by a park.
でしょ？そこに行かなきゃいいって話じゃん。それか時間ずらすとかなんとかさ、わかんないけど、朝とかさ、夜に行くとかさ。
It's a park. It's a park. Oh, hold up. This is actually not something I want to talk about. That one of the reasons I feel like it's like weird. So on one hand, I agree with you. Japan is more walkable. There are trains. It's safer. Kids can go around. On the other hand, I don't feel like there's much infrastructure that is made with the consideration of kids at all. Like at all. And one of my best examples of that is the parks. The notion of the park in Japan. Now, I have criticisms with American parks. We've talked about this before. There's a whole notion of parks being too safe. So it's not letting children have any ability to play. But more so than just parks, I mean places where children are allowed to be outside. And there aren't that many. Like this also applies to adults, to be clear. Whether it be for one, the parks that you do encounter in a lot of places in Japan, it's just concrete. Like there's nothing else. It's just rocks, just gravel, and that's a park. まあ、like the average park.
でも場所にもよるけど。まあそうね、まあ何個かっていうか、まあね、そういう公園もあるよね。ただのなんていうの。コンクリートで、まあ、たまになんか遊具があるみたいな。
and then on top of that, you might be thinking, okay, well, kids don't need parks. They could have, I don't know, maybe just places to sit, tables around, anything, honestly, but none of that exists. In a lot of the like places, that are most common for people to go and hang out at, whether it be izakaya, don't allow kids. Like, I mean, you probably do if you're like in rural, but
それはさ、あれでしょ、お酒飲めないから飲めないっていうか、飲ませてはいけない。
Yeah, of course, but I'm saying, but where does a kid go then?
What?
Where do kids, like, what facilities do you think are like made in mind for like, hey, if you're a kid, you can, this is for you, this is a place that you can be. Because, you know, you don't
ファミレス。
hang out at people's houses, right?
ファミレス。だからファミレスってさ、その名前もあるけどさ、ファミリーレストランだから、そこでは、まあ、キッズがうるさくても、なんか別に嫌な顔で見られないけど、普通の、まあ、高級レストランとかわかんないけど、そういうとこ行くと、そういうとこ行って、なんかうるさいと、行けないから、たまにそういう、まあ、高級レストランとかは、ちょっと何歳以下のお子さんはお断りしておりますみたいな、たまにあるよね。
This is one of my, like in Japan, it feels like you have to pay to engage with any sort of like activity. But one of the common tropes I would say in much of America is, you know, you're a kid, you're walking around, I mean, maybe now you don't bike, but if you're Joey, you bike around and maybe find a forest or something, and you're in a forest and you're hanging out with your friends. Like I did this a lot when I was a kid, you know, going around and traveling. But maybe just not where I've been, and maybe this would be true of places with forests, but obviously most of the big cities don't have them. And, you know, they have some of the parks. But I feel like in those parks, if a kid was by himself, I don't actually know the rules around that. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what the rules are with like children and being by themselves and at what age they can be by themselves. Are you familiar with what that in Japan?
In Japan, 別に、なんか決まりはなかった気がするけど、まあなんか家庭のルールに従うって感じかな。例えば私もなんかちっちゃい時、なんだっけな、まあ小学校何年生かまではまあ親が公園の外っていうか端の方で見てる間で友達と遊ぶとかだけど、なんかちょっとやっぱちょっとまあ年齢が上がってと友達とだけで遊ぶけど、なんか夕方になんかチャイムが鳴るのね。なんだっけ、カラスなぜかのなんかデレデレレレレっていうのがあって、なんか季節ごとに鳴る時間が変わるんだけどね。でその時間には家に帰ってきてねみたいなルールだったから、私はね。だから別に子供だけでも遊べる。
Wait, this is where?Where
ってどういうこと？外で？公園で？
Oh, just
general?
Oh, okay, back to okay, I already have my criticisms towards the 公園。
だから小学校の時はそう多分日本来たことある人はまあ聞いたことあるかもしれないけどさ、夕方4時5時とかになるんよ。小学校の。
Yeah, no.
なんかそう。
I know, I picture what you're saying when the kids are coming back.
Yeah.
But I think we're kind of talking about two different things. I'm talking about like places that are available. They don't have to be made for kids specifically. I'm basically saying places where it is acceptable for kids to hang out, you know, outside of a paid, you know, setting. And the reason I'm mentioning that
outside of
is because
だから公園でしょ、公園。
Yeah, but the 公園
あとあれだ、
so
ゲームセンター。
in my opinion,
ゲームセンター、アーケードとか。
Okay, yeah, you're right. That's actually a good example, although it's still
ね
monetarily connected.
今のね、小学生中学生はすごいよ。なんか自分たちで電車で使ってさ、なんか東京行ったりとか、あとなんだろう、モールとかね、モール行ったりとか、まあ、ディズニー行ったりとか、カラオケとか。
That might be why, well, to be clear, so what I'd be differentiating there is that kind of stuff would definitely fall into, and I do think it's a good thing, which is, you know, kids having a large role, like, you know, degree of independence. But I think this might be related to what you were saying earlier, which is because of that high degree of independence, kids tend to be by themselves, but it also might mean because they have that high degree of independence, people view and treat them as adults.
そうね。だって自分で行動してるからね。もう一人の、まあ、社会人みたいな感じね。行動するっていう面に対しては。
I mean, given that, I don't know, I really do feel that given that there's the whole the aging problem, that this is not, you know, it's hard to force culture to be one way, but as a mother, when you're already feeling a lot of the pressures of, you know, the Japan eyes on you, even as an individual with a kid, I would not want to be a mom with a kid in a train. And like, that's the easiest way to get around something. And you know, I'm not finding myself dead in a car. So
なんだろうね、多分だからちょっとそういうのが心配な人は車使ってどっか行くとかなんじゃない？それかあんま遠出しないとか。
Well, that's what I just told you. I'm saying I don't want to be caught dead in a car because that's not good for a bunch of different reasons. It's like encouraging another bad lifestyle decision. I have a question, and I'm not sure how I think about this, but a lot of times I mentioned in the podcast that Japanese people will say that Japan is an island nation, and it was made out of small villages, and people had to be together, and that's why you have the different notion. You're trying to not bother people. But in my head, I would think that having the small village context would make you more trustworthy of other people and then trying to be more supportive to bring up children. But from what you told me, at least maybe this is with your mother, there's a very strong idea of like stranger danger in Japan. Are you familiar with like stranger danger? It's like
そうね、もうJesus なんかそれちょっとストーリーがあってさ、私、今大学でなんか学習棟みたいなのがあるのね。で、学習棟に朝早く行くと、なんか掃除のおばちゃんがいつもなんかペットボトルに入った水と、空いてないね、水となんかバナナとかヨーグルトとかくれるのね。今日も頑張ってねみたいな感じで。で、私のマイマムになんだ、その掃除のおばちゃんがその水とかバナナとかくれてるんだよねみたいななんかのをなんか LINE で送ったら、もう小さい頃から知らない人から食べ物をもらわないでって言ってるでしょとか言われてさ、like am I a kid? まあそうだから
I was thinking as well. I said I was that had me thinking two things. One was you're an adult. You can decide whether you want to receive a gift from somebody. And the second thing I thought was, why is there so much fear for stranger danger in Japan? I don't actually know if I've ever heard of a case of like child abduction in Japan. I don't think I've ever heard on the news.
たまにあるっちゃあるけど、で、なんていうの、例えばさ、登下校中の小学生とかに、知らない人が、飴ちゃんあげるっつってあげて、で、その飴が実はなんかの薬だったみたいな。なんか実際起きてるんだよ。なんかこの前。
Is that in your head?
うん、本当に起きてて。で、なんか最近、ちょっとどれぐらい前だったか忘れたけど、なんかその若者、小学生ではないんだけど、が、なんか飴だと思ってたものが実はコケインだったみたいなのもあったから、ないくはない、普通に。けど多分、誘拐の事件数からすると、多分アメリカの方が多分ね、多いとは思うかな。
I like the confidence that 多分. I would say most definitely. But I would also say I don't think it's as big of a problem in the US, but it's a whole separate thing. Okay. What do you think do you think that you're more likely to get abducted by a stranger in Japan or more likely to be struck by lightning?
でもさ。
Because I know the answer is struck by lightning. Because I know the answer is struck by lightning.
違うよ。雷で死ぬことってなくない？
I'm talking about being hit. Also, then we'd have to talk about, are you going to die from being abducted by a stranger? I mean, maybe, but I'm talking about if we're dying is what we're talking about here. My only point is there's a risk to anything. It's like going outside your house. And I'm just saying, I don't think the actual risk of something happening is worth the degree that the entire society treats some, we've talked about this before on the podcast, but this is not just with stranger danger. This is generally speaking like, I need to lock my door in Japan. And despite, I told you, we looked like where I'm living, where you're living, and where I'm living, never basically like for America, one of the safest places you could be basically in America. And then you look up the statistics in your town and there wasn't a violent crime in the last 20 years reported. And I was like, what in the world?
でも実際、違う。実際、なんか私の友達でさ、なんかロックしてなくて、なんか夜中物音したと思って見て、夜中じゃないか。夜に物音したと思って見てみたら、知らない女の子が家の中入っててみたいな言ってて、って。多分その子は多分ちょっと、なんていうの？なんか、障害か分かんないけどなんか持ってったのかなみたいな言ってて、でも実際入ってくるからさらしいよ。
No, but okay, so even in that situation you're saying somebody who clearly had some mental problem accidentally walked in my house, and then what happened? She was fine. This is the most like niche. It actually happened, and then what happens? Oh, she's fine. It was just an accident.
Yeah, there was
That's what everybody's
there
scared
was
about.
a possibility じゃん。
Or like one of our friends, oh my gosh, or yeah, remember one of our I'm not gonna say any revealing information, but one of our friends had money given to her by a person she didn't know, and she was so startled by the fact that
that's
was
the
given
same
money
person,
by
by the
somebody.
way.
Oh, this is the same. Oh my god! Of course, I think she just had. Oh my god. She was so startled by the fact that she received money from somebody she didn't know that she just assumed that she had a stalker, and assumed that the stalker went inside her house, and assumed that the stalker looked up her bank account or something from her house, put money in it, and so that's what she thought, and so she decided to move. Like it just from that. And I was just like, that is the most like, if you're in the US and tell somebody, I'm saying like, have you seen a psychiatrist? I think you're clinically insane. But in Japan, you were telling people around him, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I would totally do the same thing. I'm like, what, are you crazy?
いや違う、でもさ、なんかでも実際にそのまあher husband がなんていうの、その住所をなんか SNS 上になんかブラーしないままにぼかさないでそのまま出しちゃったのね。多分でそこで住所特定して中入ったんじゃねみたいな話で
But your bank account isn't your house. That doesn't make any sense. Like that's not.
それがちょっと分かんないんだよね。
I'm just saying there's no logical connection from the evidence to get to the point of thinking like the fact your brain.
ありえなくもないよね。ありえなくはない。
No, it's zero. Like other stuff could have happened, but not that. Like I don't know. But anyways, let us know if you like your experience as a kid. Just generally speaking, especially if you live in other countries that aren't the U.S. or Japan. I don't think anybody here is going to have Japanese children's stories. But also let us know if you have any other questions about what it's like being a kid in Japan. I'm sure Aimi can answer them. 戻りました。
We're back.
今回あやみはめっちゃ困ってるからそのことについて話したがってると思うんだけど。
Yeah, I'm like, I'm really stressed out and I'm freaking out because the graduation exam will come soon. Like, oh my god, in October, like at the like 24th and 25th and 31st and November 1st. And
で、卒業試験は普通の試験と違って違いあるかな?
Oh, yeah. So like for this graduation exam, I can't fail. Like usually, you can fail like one time and then you retake the like saishi, like exam. And then if you pass that, it's okay. But for this graduation exam, I can't take the exam again. So if you fail once, you're fucked up, and you have to pay for the next year. So this exam is everything, like なんていうの? What I've learned throughout 6 years will be tested on this exam. And the amount is massive. Like you can't know like how much I should study. And I was pretty busy with job hunting, like interviews and like researching stuff. So I didn't actually like study in summer while like other people were studying. So like the recent mock exam was pretty bad for me. Everyone got like better scores, and since I didn't study, I got like the worst like score I've ever had. So I was like, oh my god. And yeah.
それ嘘ついてると思うけど、それは他の周りにいる人は前よりいいスコアを取ったという感じじゃなかったと思うんだ。
No. Like usually, like I think, yeah.
いや、あいみの友達の中で全員は同じ感じがしちゃったんだけど。
No.
聞いてみたら。
No. It's just like 1 or 2 people.
1人か2人しか聞いてなかったよね。
So there's like a study group in my school, and two people said that they got like really bad scores, but like other people they got like good 30 out of like 150 people or something. So it's like that used
でも
to
そ
be
の模
me,
擬、こ
but
の模
like
擬試験
this
と前
time
の、
yeah
その模擬試験と前の模擬試験の大きな違いがあったでしょ。その試験を受ける前にどういう情報がテストされるって知らなかったでしょ今回は。
Well, yeah, but like the thing is, I didn't really study. Like everyone did a lot of questions from question bank, and the exam was pretty much the same. How do you say, like the exam had like similar or same questions in question bank. So like it was just like about how much you did. How much question bank questions you did. So it's just simple. I didn't study that much. And yeah, I was planning like how much I should do like yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, like there are so many subjects. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 subjects. And each one has, I don't know, like average 200 to 300 questions. But the
やば。
and but one which is like 必修問題 is like なんていうの you have to have like
questions.
more than like 80% correct rate. So that's like 1,300 questions. Like, oh my God. And then with public health, it's 580. And I don't give a shit to like, なんていうの which how do you say institution is responsible for like elderly healthcare. I was like, I don't give a fuck.
それが public health に入るの？
Yeah,
public
yeah,
health は
入
何？
る。ん？
具体的に何？どういうような仕組みが何をやってるってことだけ？
And yeah, lots of laws and like, how do you say? What else?
法律に関わるもの。
Yeah, and statistics. Like, I'm so like.
ちなみに
I think
保険について勉強しないといけないの。
Yeah.
面倒。
Yeah, and like I dislike statistics the most. And like it's not something you will use in the future, and also like I hate math. Like it's not like difficult math, but like really complicated. So like, oh my God. So I don't know. And then I was planning to wake up at 4:30 and start studying at like 5 or 5:30 in the morning, but I failed today. So I don't know what to do.
じゃあ4時この時に起きたいから起きられるということはあまりないと思うんだけど、実際的に。でもとりあえずポッドキャストを聞いてる人なら、あいみはこういう時でもポッドキャストの撮影をやるから、その応援の言葉をぜひぜひたくさん送ってください。メールとかポッドキャストのコメントでもいいし。
How people plan for exams, especially exams that are really, really important, like for college, university. So yeah, I want to know how to manage time, how to release
また
your
日本では
stress.
一つの習慣があって、その習慣は大きな試合がある前にその前の日にとんかつを食べる。なんで食べるかというと、そのとんかつはカツが入ってあるからカツ、 で、勝つためにとんかつを食べる。で、他の国に住んでいたら、そういう、運を増やすための何か、コツあったら、それもぜひぜひ教えてください。And we're back with the final section. And if you've made to the final section, you just send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com with a comment, question, language related, and or otherwise. And this week, I'm wanting to talk about something specifically because I'm selfish. The first thing, this is the most important thing, but there's another update I want to do right after this is, for those who are podcast listeners, but realizing that Joey, there's also, Lazy Fluency main channel. If you're in the Discord, you know what's up. But I don't talk about it too much on the podcast. I'll mention it sometime. Like, Joey, did you stop making main channel videos? What in the world happened? No, I've been working on one video for the past 7 months. Consistently. It's been a very long... Now, I was at the whole time I've been working on this video, but at different rates because I was in Japan, et cetera, other things got in the way. So, I'm not saying I was working at 100% efficiency the entire time. Yep. But I have been working on one video for way too long, but I'm very excited about it. And I can confirm that it will be releasing sometime next week. I can't know what the day, depends on other stuff. And I want to put subtitles in English and Japanese on it. But it is very long. Looks like it's going to be around 40 minutes, which is, if you're keeping track, more than like almost double length of every video, except for one video I did before. It's also more effort, per minute of video that I've done before required a bunch of, there's research, buying things, like all the video camera supplies I've gotten since the last video I made we're like, basically there's a whole bunch of stuff. New camera, tripod, lights, softboxes, learning how to use them, had to wait for things to ship in, editing, going back from different countries. And then also I was initially planning to have some other people in the video. I don't want to spoil anything. But that wasn't able to happen, but they did show up in the video in some form, which will make sense when you see the video. So I'm very excited about it, and I just wanted to mention it. And to be clear, my intention is not to be a once every 7 month uploading video type of person, but it just kind of happened this time. I'm going to have to figure out a way to make that not the case. Sorry, go ahead.
なんて言うとしたか。じゃあだからこの次の動画は今までで一番頑張った動画になりそうですか？
Oh, no, not even close. Yeah,
not even close.
I don't want to put a number to it
because
it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
But just especially because I'm not trying to have like the quality of my videos be determined by how much time I put into them. But quite a lot of time went into this video, and I'm hoping, I mean, it's a good thing when you watch a video like multiple times, you're editing it, that you're like, oh wow, this is still really entertaining to watch. So I'm feeling pretty confident about it. I'm feeling very happy about it. But at the same time, going forward, there's some stuff I wanted to do with podcasts or maybe the Discord, as well as other things I've been thinking about. But in my head, I'm like, I just must finish this video first. So that's kind of what's been in my mind for a while. As a second thing, unrelated, but I thought it might worth mentioning, I experienced my first, it's completely unrelated to the whole main channel thing, the first dust storm. In Japanese, I think it's called砂嵐. And I'm in Idaho. And I did not know that was something I could experience. But if you guys are familiar with Darude sandstorm, that kind of thing, where flying, that happened in Idaho. And like, I got an alert that literally said on my phone, it was one of those Amber alerts. And it was like, massive sandstorm or dust storm incoming. What was the wording specifically? It was like, be sure to live. Try to live. Try to live. And I was like, what in the try to live? What does that mean? And it's like, if you're driving, stop.
砂嵐ってさ、ただのさ、砂が舞ってるだけじゃないの？
Well, it's not. Well, in this case, it was dust, not sand specifically. But
dust
I think if you're dry, so I'll paint the picture of what happened. I get the alert. I look outside. It looks normal. A minute later, probably 5 minutes later, I look outside, and on the horizon, I see a wall, like a giant cloud coming from like above, like below the high rise and going up, of just like brown dust. And then within like 2 minutes, that now brown cloud is engulfing the entire sky. And then outside that just gets darker and darker and darker until inside my room it looks like I have all like I didn't have my curtains up, but it's as if I had I blackout shades. It's basically as if I had them up, and then the power starts flickering and going off. And then I have chickens, so I need to make sure they get the chickens inside the coop.
でもさ、あれ停電になったんだっけ?
Yeah, the entire town's electricity went off, or like half of it.
なんでさダストのダストームでさ停電になるの？だって別にさなんていうの？雷とかだったらさ、まあなんていうの、その雷が電線にヒットしてでそれで停電になるはわかるんだけど、ただのダストでしょ？なんでそれで停電になるの？
Well, the winds were up to like 60 miles an hour, which is, I don't know, some over 100 kilometers, probably 120. I don't know how much it is, kilometers an hour. So that was the wind carrying it. So it's
a wind?
Yeah, it was yeah, the wind, but it was also throwing away blinding, the dust makes it impossible to see. So it's like getting so if you're in a car, that'd be extremely dangerous. And it looked crazy. It reminded me of the message I got reminded me. Are you familiar with the movie called The Purge?
Nope.
It's about like I think it's all the Marseille in America. It's like it's a horror thriller-esque movie or series where it's like the idea is once a year, all laws get ignored. Like there are no laws for one day, so you can do whatever you want. And I think the idea is like you need it so that people, it relieves the stress of the population because they're able to do whatever they want for one day or something like that. But that's kind of what I expected when I got the email. I'm like, what is this Amber Alert? Try to live. I've never seen something. I was like, and especially because I didn't see anything immediately wrong. I'm like, yeah, it's and I've never seen anything like that too. I'm like, dust storm, and so it threw me off. And to be clear, it did end up knocking up, like obviously knocked all the power out. A bunch of trees like got wrecked and branches were all over everywhere in town. And I was checking out a movie later that day, and they had to use a generator. They pulled this small generator to get it on the screen, and like biking around to like the main downtown area, I'd take a bunch of detours because there were just giant branches over all the trees. Oh, and the other thing I noticed, which is very interesting, is all the lights were off, and it made me realize how dark night is actually is. You probably don't think about this, and you probably haven't thought about.
だって夜に家の中の電気つけなかったら同じ暗さになるってことだよね。
Yeah, but seeing it outside is different. Like outside, you're used to, a general degree of darkness, and you maybe think that that's how dark it gets without the lights on. But what in reality, without lights on, it is pitch black. Like if there were no light, like it's the same amount of being in your room with complete like nothing, and you're outside though. That's the surreal part.
外に出てもライトがなくて、怖くなるわ。
Literally, you can't see anything.
しかもあれでしょ、
like
夜とさ違くてさ、月明かりとかもないわけでしょ。
Yeah, exactly. There's no moonlight. Yeah, and obviously it's very very cloudy. So I thought it was cool in a way. And I was like, man, we really have a lot of light pollution. Granted, there was dust pollution in the moment, but it made me think about made me think about that as well. But I just wanted to share that experience. I thought it was so good.
ライトポリューションって何？その明かりを使いすぎってこと？
Yeah, it's basically where there's always constant lights, and it prevents any darkness, which can be bad for your health. Your circadian rhythm, a bunch of different things. Light pollution.
なんかさ、よくさ、なんだろう、なんだっけ、よく100万ドルの絶景とかなんかあるじゃん、その夜景を見るみたいな。なんかライト、高いところからライトを見て、綺麗ですねみたいな。私あれちょっと理解できないんだよね。なんかライトそんな綺麗かと思っちゃうんだよね。その なんかただのさ、なんか人類が自然を破壊してきたなんか歴史みたいなのを見てるだけでさ、なんか別に綺麗と思わないんだよね。なんならさ、なんだ昼間になんか山登って、で、なんか自然見た方がなんか綺麗だと思うんだけど。夜景
I
はちょっと
mean,
綺麗さがよくわかんない
nowadays you gotta think of that. But I would say if there was a place that light didn't exist and someone made light, dude, that'd be crazy.
あ、まあね、
Like,
確かに。
what in the
確かに
world?
うん、
They did
ま
make
あ、
me want to go to a place that can experience pitch black. It's called True Dark or something. I can't. In Japan, there's some places like that, and I'm assuming America as well. But like a place that has like no light pollution. So you can actually pull out like a telescope. I realized that I don't know the last time I've actually seen like a night sky. You know, like actually being able to see like stars in the sky.
ああ、確かにね、なんかやっぱ田舎の、まあ、アイルフは十分田舎だと思うんだけど、で、空気が澄んでないとね、見れないよね、そういうのって。
Yeah, I literally don't know. I was trying to think if I've even ever seen. If I have, it's been so long I can't even remember if I've seen stars in the night sky.
なん
But
か
yeah, that's kind of stuff you think about when you get hit with the dust storm.
なんか長野になんか小学生の時になんだっけな、修学旅行かなんかで行って、めちゃめちゃ綺麗だったよ。なんか、確かちょっと山だったかなわかんないけど。で、ボンファイアやって、で、なんか空見たらマジで、なんか星がね、ほんと綺麗だったよね。で、空気も澄んでて。やっぱりそういう光景ってさ、まあ、東京だとまず見れないし、多分ニューヨークとかって見れないよね。もうなんかもう、建物がさ、そもそも空まで届いちゃってるからさ、多分そういった、なんて言うんだろうね、景色って見れないよね。
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna make it I don't know if it's possible. I would like to next time in Japan. I don't know, see if I can figure out. The thing when you're in Japan, it's just so much easier because you can just train somewhere. In the US, to do that, it'd have to be a whole thing, and it'd be like, I would want to drive 16 hours away to go this one spot, and then spend a life savings on just hotels and etc. But I feel like if you want to do some in Japan, it's like, oh, I'll just take a train, do a day trip, then I'm able to access it. Although I know many Americans love their road trips across the US, and I've done many, but it's actually expensive, and I find cars awful, as we've established. But yeah, anyways, next week's topic will be related to the main channel video. I've been very excited. So yeah. That bell means we reached the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us, another lazy conversation towards fluency. If you have any language-related questions and are just looking for general advice, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com and we might respond in the next episode. Also, consider supporting us on Ko-Fi to get video updates, Discord access, and or to just lend a hand. And finally, make sure to check out our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. We'd appreciate the support. This has been Joey.
And Ayami.
Signing off. Jenny.